In the warm, sunny city of Los Angeles, there lived an ordinary American family, the Thompsons. The father, Michael Thompson, the mother, Sarah Thompson, and their two daughters who looked alike on the outside, but were completely different on the inside. The older one was named Emily, the younger, Olivia. No one could have imagined how drastically their lives were about to change. Very soon, they would make a choice that could never be undone, and that choice would determine everything: who would find true happiness, and who would lose even what they already had. From childhood, the difference between Emily and Olivia was impossible to ignore. Emily was quiet, kind, and sincere. She always helped her mother around the house, supported her father, and never argued. She believed in simple things: love, trust, and authenticity. Olivia was different. She loved attention. She loved expensive things. She loved being admired. She believed that life was a game, and the winner is the one who takes the most, and she was determined to win. Time passed. The girls grew up, and one day the moment came that changes everything. The time to choose their future. The time for love. The time for marriage. Emily fell in love first. His name was Daniel. He wasn't rich. He didn't have expensive clothes or a nice car. He worked as a simple mechanic in a repair shop. His hands were covered in grease, not gold. But when he looked at Emily, there was something in his eyes that money could never buy: sincerity, care, love. They walked together through quiet streets, drank cheap coffee, laughed for no reason, and Emily was happy, truly happy. But not everyone shared her happiness. One evening, as the whole family sat at the table, Olivia looked at her sister with a smile and said, "Seriously, Emily? A mechanic? Do you really think that's your future?" Emily stayed silent, but Olivia continued, "You'll be counting every dollar, living in a tiny house, and calling that happiness?" There was more than just mockery in her voice. There was superiority. Emily quietly replied, "What matters isn't money. What matters is the person beside you." Olivia just smiled. That's what people say when they don't have any. Time passed, and soon, Olivia met someone too. His name was Ryan Collins, and he was everything she had ever dreamed of: a successful businessman, the owner of a large company, an expensive suit, an expensive watch, and expensive words. He took her to the best restaurants, gave her jewelry, showed her a life she had only seen on social media, and Olivia was sure, this is it, this is my life. Their relationship moved fast, very fast. And one day, Ryan proposed, a luxurious proposal, with a ring that cost more than Daniel's yearly salary. When Olivia found out that Emily was also planning a wedding, she couldn't hold back. "Well, little sister, let's see which one of us made the right choice." The weddings were different, just like their lives. Emily got married in a small, cozy church. Only the closest people were there. No luxury, no show. But when she looked at Daniel, there were tears of happiness in her eyes. Olivia's wedding was different. A huge hall, hundreds of guests, expensive dresses, photographers, champagne that cost as much as a car. She looked perfect, like the cover of a magazine. After the wedding, their paths separated. Olivia moved to another city, to a massive house with a pool, with staff, with the life she had always dreamed of. And Emily started from zero. A small house, simple furniture and constant struggle. She helped Daniel, supported him, believed in him, even when it was hard. Even when there wasn't enough money. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit by the window, looking at the city lights, in silence, and Daniel would come up, hug her gently, and say, "I promise. Everything will be okay." And she believed him. And somewhere far away, Olivia was living in her perfect world. Expensive, beautiful, and, at first glance, happy. But life has a way of testing our choices, and very soon, everything would begin to change. Time passed, and the life that once seemed perfect began to show its true side. Olivia lived in a large, luxurious house. Everything was exactly as she had dreamed. Expensive furniture, spacious rooms, silence that grew louder with each passing day. Ryan was almost never home. He was always busy, work, meetings, endless phone calls. Even when he was there, it felt like he wasn't. Olivia often sat alone at a long dining table, dinner in front of her, silence all around, and cold walls of a house that felt too big. She tried to talk to him. "Ryan, we barely see each other." But he would reply shortly, "I'm doing this for us." But for us somehow didn't include her. Little by little, she began to feel something unfamiliar. Emptiness, loneliness, and doubt. There was also someone else who made things worse. Ryan's mother, Margaret Collins. She visited often, and every time, she found something to criticize. "You're doing everything wrong. You don't fit this level. Ryan deserves better." Each word cut deep, slowly, painfully. Olivia waited for Ryan to stand up for her, to say something, anything, but he stayed silent, every time, and that hurt the most. Not his mother's words, but his indifference. At the same time, Emily's life was completely different. She lived in a small house, no luxury, no expensive things, but there was warmth. She started working, helping Daniel, supporting him in everything. When things were hard, she didn't complain. When money was tight, she didn't blame him. She simply stayed by his side. And Daniel felt it. He began to work harder, stronger, more determined than ever. Over time, his efforts started to pay off. More clients, more orders. His small garage became too small. He rented a bigger space, then hired his first workers, then more. And slowly, his business began to grow. Their life was changing. Not fast, but steadily. They still didn't live in luxury, but they no longer counted every dollar. And, most importantly, they had each other. One day, the whole family gathered at their parents' house. A holiday, a warm reunion. The two sisters stood side by side again. Olivia arrived in an expensive car, wearing designer clothes, holding a luxury handbag. She looked like a winner. Emily was dressed simply, modestly, but in her eyes, there was something else. Peace. Olivia glanced at her and smiled. "You haven't changed at all," she said. "Still simple." Emily replied quietly, "What matters is that I'm happy." Olivia didn't believe her. Because to her, happiness had always been measured in money, but life was already preparing a different lesson for her. Time passed, and one day, everything began to fall apart. Ryan's business started having problems. At first, small, then serious. Contracts collapsed. Partners walked away. Money started disappearing. He became nervous, irritated. even more distant. The house that once symbolized success became a burden. They had to start selling things, one by one. Expensive cars, jewelry, furniture, and finally, they sold the house. Olivia stood in the middle of an empty room and couldn't believe it. This had been her life, her dream, and now it was falling apart right in front of her. They moved into a small, modest house. No luxury, no shine, and for the first time, Olivia felt something she used to laugh at. A simple life, but unlike Emily, she wasn't happy. Ryan became even more closed off, lost in his problems, lost in himself, and again, he wasn't there for her. Now they had nothing. No money, no warmth, no support. Olivia looked at her life, and for the first time thought, what if I was wrong? Meanwhile, Emily's life kept moving forward. Daniel opened his own business, a real one, with employees, with stable income. They moved into a better house, bought a car, started living a life they once couldn't even imagine. But most importantly, they didn't change. They still supported each other, still stood side by side, and now the two sisters found themselves on opposite sides. The one who once laughed was losing everything, and the one who was laughed at was finding real happiness. And ahead of them was the most important thing, realization, and a choice. Life had changed, and now everything was the opposite. Olivia stood by a small window in her new, modest home. No marble, no panoramic views, no luxury, just silence and thoughts she couldn't escape from. She looked at her hands, at the fingers where an expensive ring once was. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't recognize herself. Ryan barely spoke. He had disappeared into his problems, into his failures, into his pride. He was no longer the confident man he used to be. But he didn't become closer either. One evening, Olivia said quietly, "I'm struggling." Ryan didn't even look up. "Me too." And that was it. No support, no warmth, no love. In that moment, she finally understood. She hadn't been a partner. She had been part of his success. And now, that success was gone. And with it, so was she. That same week, Olivia made a decision. She went back home, to her parents. When she walked into the familiar house, everything looked the same. But she was not. And there, she saw Emily. Emily stood in the kitchen, in simple clothes, smiling, cooking dinner. Daniel stood beside her, telling her something quietly. They laughed, together. It wasn't a show, not for anyone else. It was real. Olivia stopped and just watched. She remembered how she once laughed at her sister, how she called this kind of life a failure, a mistake, and now she saw the truth. Emily noticed her, walked over, and softly said, "Hi." No judgment, no sarcasm. No, "I told you so." And that broke Olivia. Her voice trembled. "I was wrong." Silence, heavy, but honest. "I thought money was everything. I thought if you had everything expensive, you'd be happy." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But I was so alone." Emily didn't say a word. She just hugged her, tightly, warmly, for real. And in that moment, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Warmth. Not from money, not from luxury, from a person. They sat together for a long time, talking, sitting in silence. And for the first time, Olivia didn't feel above anyone, and she didn't feel below anyone. She just felt human. After some time, she made another decision. She returned to her life, but not as the same person. She stopped waiting for someone else to make her happy. She began to change herself. She found a job, a simple one, no status, no glamour, but honest, real. She was learning again, to live, to value, to feel. Ryan remained in his own world. They slowly grew apart, and one day, they separated. No fights, no shouting, just nothing left to hold on to. Time passed, and one evening, Olivia stood outside. No expensive things, no perfect image, but for the first time in years, she felt calm. She called Emily. "How are you?" And heard the answer, "I'm happy." Olivia smiled and quietly said, "I think I'm getting there too. Sometimes life doesn't punish us, it teaches us. Sometimes we choose the shine, only to later learn how to see the light. Because real happiness is not something you can buy. It's the person who stays beside you when there's nothing left to buy." Time passed. Not days, not weeks, but months. That slowly changed everything. Olivia's life was no longer what it used to be, but for the first time, it felt real. She worked every day, a simple job, no luxury, no status, but it was hers. At first, it was hard, very hard. She wasn't used to this life, to effort, to responsibility, to standing on her own. But step by step, she changed. She stopped comparing herself to others, stopped chasing appearances, stopped needing to prove anything, and something inside her finally became quiet. One evening, after a long day, she walked through the city streets. No expensive clothes, no attention, just her. And for the first time, she didn't feel empty. She felt free. Meanwhile, Ryan's life had also changed. He was still trying to rebuild his business, still chasing what he had lost. But something was different. He was alone. No one waiting for him at home. No one sitting across from him at dinner. No one who truly cared. And slowly, he began to understand. Everything he once ignored was everything that mattered. One day, he called Olivia. She looked at the phone, his name on the screen, the past, calling her back. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, she answered. "Olivia." His voice was different, quieter, less confident. "I've been thinking about everything." A pause. "I was wrong." She stayed silent. "I didn't see you. I didn't appreciate you. I thought money was everything." Another pause. Longer this time. "I want to fix it. I want us back." The words she once waited for. The words she once needed. But now, everything was different. Olivia took a slow breath and said calmly, "I know." Silence on the other end. "And I forgive you." Ryan's voice softened. Then, "Come back." But Olivia closed her eyes, just for a second. And in that second, she saw everything. The empty dinners, the silence, the loneliness, the version of herself that disappeared in that house. She opened her eyes. "I'm not that person anymore." Ryan didn't speak. "I waited for you," she continued. "For a long time." Another pause. "But now, I don't need you to come back." Her voice was steady, not angry, not cold, just, "Sure. I'm choosing myself this time." And with that, She ended the call. No tears, no regret, just peace. Time moved on, and life kept going. One day, in a small, quiet cafe, Olivia met someone. His name was Ethan. He wasn't rich, didn't wear expensive suits, didn't promise her the world. But when he spoke, he listened. When he smiled, it was real. And when he looked at her, she didn't feel like something to own. She felt seen. They started talking, slowly, without pressure, without illusions, just two people getting to know each other. And, for the first time, Olivia didn't rush. She didn't chase a perfect life. She didn't chase status. She chose something real. Months later, they walked together down the street. Simple evening, warm light, quiet city sounds. Ethan gently took her hand, and Olivia smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because, this time, it was honest. And somewhere, not far away, Emily watched her sister, and smiled too, because she knew Olivia had finally found what she was always looking for. Not in money, not in status, but in truth.